Chapter 5 When Bad Turns to Gas. "Sis," said Ricky. Before he could get another word in, Mama found a good radio station that came in crystal clear. It was playing a James Brown song. It's a man's world. She drowned her annoying brother out by turning the volume up almost as loud as it would go. Unfortunately, that didn't stop him from talking. Being that he was much drunker now, he raised his voice to go over the radio. "Sis, I know you can hear me. If you want me to drive, I can." Still, Mama remained silent. It wasn't long, however, before Ricky gave up the arguing. After another beer, he fell asleep. I didn't hear an announcement, but the radio station must have been having a James Brown marathon, or whatever they call it on the radio. It hadn't been long since Mama had gotten behind the wheel. Red was passed out, snoring like a bear in winter hibernation. The big station wagon cruised along at a pace slightly slower than the speed of light. The only thing that could be heard over Red's snoring and the occasional thump the tires made after rolling over a few road reflectors was the godfather of soul and his band. As I awoke from one of several naps, I noticed the music was off. Both Uncle Ricky and Papa Red were still very much asleep. "Ma, you're not too sleepy, are you?" I asked. "No, baby. I've made this trip more than once, you know, but thanks for asking." "Well, when are you going to let someone else drive?" "Sweetheart, Red is too tired to drive anymore, and your uncle is still, well, you know. I'll just come out and say it. Your uncle is still too drunk. I'm just going to finish the rest of the way." "Are you scared of getting pulled over by the police?" "Travis, it's all in the Lord's hands. I've been praying since we left home, and I'm not going to stop until we park in New York." After Mama had driven a little longer and after I'd dozed off again, I awoke to see that we were pulling into another gas station. Coming off of the highway, the station wagon dipped down, then back up again. The heavy vehicle made lots of squeaks and creaks as it bounced up and down. Stretching my neck over Mama's shoulder, I saw that the fuel light was on. With all the noise and bouncing, Papa Red and Uncle Ricky awoke as well. "You still good?" Red said to Mama, wiping away the sleep from his face with his large hands. "Yeah, Daddy, I'm fine," said Mama. "Sis," said Uncle Ricky, "I can drive now, you know." "Ricky, you can drive on the way back. I'm in a driving mood." "I wish you'd stop being so stubborn. You don't have any license. Last thing we need is for you to go to jail," said Uncle Ricky. Papa Red agreed as he opened the door to get out. "Baby, you sure you don't want your brother or me to drive now?" he asked, looking directly at her. "I wanted him to drive in the first place, but he's drinking like a fish." She was still upset. Maybe the driving was calming her nerves from worrying about Aunt Eleanor. Okay, go on and drive then," said Papa Red before closing the door. He seemed to be proud of his daughter for being the strong woman she was, but worried about the possibility of her getting caught. I pumped the gas as Mama watched. It was something I loved to do. After everyone used the restrooms and bought snacks, we all returned to the station wagon to continue on our endless journey to New York. Red had gotten me 2 slices of steaming hot pepperoni pizza. "Okay, Lois, I'm not drunk, so I'm driving the rest of the way. I ain't had a drink in over 2 hours. Red sugar is acting up, and you look like you ain't had sleep in 2 days. I told y'all before we left that we should have gotten some sleep, but no, nobody ever listened to Ricky. Now get in the back, because I got all the sleep I need." "Okay," Mama said without fuss. She quickly got out of the front seat, came around, and sat across from me in the back. Not having the strength or care to argue, Papa Red lay back as he took a drink of water and bit into his Snickers. "Wait," Mama said as Uncle Ricky started to drive off. "How much change do I need to call New York? There's a payphone next to the highway. I'm going to call Judy to see how Aunt Eleanor's doing." Judy was Aunt Eleanor's youngest daughter. I had seen her a few times whenever she came down to visit. "I got $1.10 in change," said Papa Red. "I just spent my last bit of change on this pickle," said Uncle Ricky, as he crunched down on an enormous dill pickle while adjusting the driver's side view mirror. As I dug through my pockets, putting the hot slices of pizza aside, I could only find lint at first, and then my fingers touched what felt like 2 quarters. I was so proud to hand them over to Mama and happy to get back to my pizza. Oh, the dripping hot cheese and tomato sauce tasted so good. Chewing like a hungry cow, the gooey cheese stuck a piece of pepperoni to the roof of my mouth. I used my tongue to get it free. The buttery garlic dough, it was so yummy, so delicious. We parked next to the phone booth. Mama rushed over, fed the machine enough coins to make the call, and started dialing the number. Through the window, I watched carefully as she stood there in the dirty blue box. It was dark, and I didn't want any creeps coming up to her asking for money or anything weird like that. Someone had spray painted the word devil in red over the word phone at the top of the booth. On the cement slab right where Mama stood was a huge stain. I hated phone booths. Most of them smelled like pee, and from the looks of it, this one did too. One side of the booth was covered in graffiti, the other side had a big crack in the glass. It wasn't the best place to make a call, and judging by how her shoulders dropped not long after she began talking, something told me that at the moment, cleanliness wasn't on Mama's mind. She finished the conversation and came back looking more worried and depressed than before the call. Something wasn't right. "Oh, Lord, please let my sister be all right," Papa Red said. "Come on now," said Uncle Ricky. "Y'all know Auntie Ellen is a tough old alligator. She'll pull right through this thing. Just watch and see." It was the first time I'd heard him talk with sense in over 10 hours. He really had sobered up. Mama was weeping a little. What's going on, sis?" said Uncle Ricky as he pulled away from the phone booth. "Yeah, what's the matter, baby girl?" said Red. I told them that we're on our way. I told them... "What's the matter, sweetie?" asked Red again. This time his usual heavy voice cracked a little. It sounded as though he needed a drink of water. Rattling ice in his styrofoam cup, he took an uneasy sip of soda. "She's in a coma," Mama said. "She slipped into a coma 10 minutes before I called." That was the latest update. Only a few words were said the rest of the trip. My calculator watch said 7:18 a.m. when we crossed the George Washington Bridge. It was a gigantic bridge that stretched all the way across the Hudson River. I knew we were in Harlem when I started seeing all the apartment buildings and black people. There were blacks and Puerto Ricans everywhere. I'd never been to Harlem, but I'd heard many stories about how most blacks left the South back when the South was overflowing with racism to move to Harlem. Some went to the Bronx, some went to Queens or Brooklyn, but most had migrated to Harlem. I felt right at home. There were cars and buses and taxis and so many tall buildings everywhere you could see. I'd never seen so many people in one place. It was wonderful. With all of the commotion, it was the closest thing I'd ever been to seeing real-life magic. Horns were honking, brakes were squealing. I was in love with New York and its fast pace from the very start. Not long after we crossed the bridge, we arrived at Harlem Hospital Center. No one was allowed to see Aunt Eleanor, but we found her daughter Judy, who was nervously pacing in the waiting room. I could tell she had been crying because her nose was red and the bags underneath her eyes were puffy, and the ball of tissue that she was holding needed to be replaced. It seemed as though the waiting room was filled with sad or sick-looking people. Minutes after we arrived, an old man in a wheelchair who was sitting next to the television went into a coughing fit. It was so bad that he nearly tore loose the hose that ran from a little green tank to a mask that should have been on his face. But instead, it was being clutched in his hand while the other hand covered his mouth. He was trying desperately to keep germs from spewing all over his nearby audience. I didn't like hospitals. "Oh my goodness, you guys made it here so fast," she said in a New Yorker's accent as she gave all of us hugs and kisses. "Now, is this handsome young my Travis?" she said while eyeing me. I nodded my head. I found it strange that she was there by herself because, as far as I remembered, Aunt Eleanor had 3 children. I decided to listen to the conversation in order to find out what was going on. Just like I thought, Mama went straight to my question. Where's James and Brenda? She asked. Brenda just left and James is on his way. We sent a Red Cross message overseas yesterday, said Judy. Oh, goodness, Mama said. I forgot he was still out of the country. Where's he at now? Germany? Korea? Right now, he's in Germany, but in the process of moving his family to Virginia. Remarried, with 2 more kids. Girls, said Judy. So I've heard, said Mama. Judy went on to say that Cousin James was on his 3rd marriage, had 6 children in all, and was about to be retired after 25 years in the Army. Now, see, that's somebody you need to be looking up to. 25 years of service, said Uncle Ricky as he looked down at me. He had one of his silly smirks on his face, so he couldn't have been serious. Whatever the case, Mama rolled her eyes. She had a problem with Uncle Ricky's statement. 6 kids and 3 marriages wasn't exactly the best thing to look up to. Well, how's my sister doing? Red asked Judy. She's not in a coma now, said Judy. Really? Said Mama. Yeah, turned out she wasn't in a coma in the first place. These doctors, I swear. As Judy was filling us in on how Aunt Eleanor was doing, a blonde-haired doctor who at first I thought was a nurse came walking up to us. Maybe it was her size that caused me to think that she was a 5th grader dressing up for career day. She was taller than me, but only by an inch or 2, with bright sky blue eyes that looked like they belonged on a baby doll. Miss Devine? The doctor said. Yes, said Judy. I have some additional good news. Okay. More family? Asked the doctor as she scanned our faces with a kind smile. Yes, Judy said. These are all close relatives from South Carolina. They just got here. Well, said the doctor, it's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm Dr. Michelle Paxton, cardiologist, and I guess you all must have brought along good spirits all the way up from South Carolina. I'm sorry, miss. I don't mean to be rude, Papa Red interrupted, but can you tell me how my sister's doing? You said you have good news. Is she doing better now? Sir, your sister is doing just fine. We may have to keep her a little longer, but she's doing quite well now that she was able to... The doctor looked kind of embarrassed. Your sister had a severe case of gas.